like, come in the house. And she like, no, I don't want to go in. I'm begging her to come.
Tee Grizzly's headed to prison, and this time, it's looking permanent. What once seemed like a tragic case of mistaken identity just flipped into a nightmare. A few years back, his aunt, Joba Brown, was gunned down, and Grizzly told the world that Bullet was meant for him. But now, that whole story's getting ripped apart. Investigators just dropped bombshell claims that saying Tee didn't just survive the hit. He set it up. Yeah, they're straight up accusing him of calling the shots on his own aunt's murder. This ain't just street rumors, this is all going down in court. Let's rewind. Back in the day, they actually caught a suspect, Jermaine Weeden, aka Wu-Tang, or just Wang, out in Chicago. His trial kicked off on July 15, 2025, in Detroit's Wayne County Circuit Court. It looked like your standard drill case. Chicago hitter pulls up, Detroit victim drops. Done deal. But nah. The courtroom turned into a war zone once the real details came out. Prosecutors came ready. They had a .40 caliber Glock 23 that matched the bullets from the scene. That thing was found on Weeden months later in Chi-Town, and the ballistics? Locked in. They had him in a stolen blue Nissan Versa, same ride seen fleeing the hit. And the phone records? GPS put him right in the D the exact moment the shots rang out. But Weeden's defense team didn't just fight the charges, they flipped the whole narrative. In open court, they claimed Tee Grizzley himself put the money down to get J.B. Brown taken out. No tap dancing, no half-stepping. They said it flat out. Grizzly called the hit on his own blood. And just like that, everything changed. What looked like a clear-cut murder case just cracked open into a full-blown scandal that could end Tee's freedom and his career forever.
I told y'all that Tee Grizzley was pretty much like, people were speculating if he had something to do with the unaliving of his alleged Aunt Tee, pure survival, and he was supposed to allegedly got this woman pregnant. Now, we found out that she was never pregnant.
This wasn't no wild swing from some rookie public defender trying to stay afloat. Nah, legal insiders say a defense team can't just throw around accusations like that unless their client gave them serious dirt. That means Jermaine Weeden might have spilled something major. And what came out next shook the whole game. The most jaw-dropping claim? That Tee Grizzley ordered the hit because J.B. Brown, his aunt, was allegedly pregnant with his baby. Yeah, you heard that right. If that was true, it would have meant Tee was caught up in some deep scandal, a messy secret with his own uncle's wife. The moment that hit the courtroom, the internet exploded. Fans were left stunned, trying to piece together how their redemption hero could be hiding something this twisted. Memes, threads, breakdowns, the timeline was on fire. But before things could spiral even further, the prosecution came with receipts. Autopsy results proved J.B. Brown wasn't pregnant when she died. Period. That shut down the defense's boldest angle right there. But at the same time, it made things even weirder. Because now everybody was asking, if J.B. wasn't carrying, where did that pregnancy rumor even start? Why would Weeden and his team base their whole strategy around it? The only answer that made sense? Somebody told Weeden that J.B. was pregnant to justify the hit. That's the type of lie you don't just invent. It's fed to you. And if that's the case, then we're not just talking about a murder for hire. We're talking about a setup built on fake info. Cold-blooded manipulation that turns this into something way deeper and darker than anyone imagined. As the trial dragged on, things just kept getting messier. One after another, new details started surfacing, and they weren't helping Tee Grizzley at all. In fact, they were making the defense's wild claims look more believable by the day. Witnesses dropped a bomb, saying Grizzly and J.B. Brown had allegedly gotten real close after his uncle landed behind bars. Not just friendly, intimate. That rumor had been circling behind the scenes since the early days of the investigation. Cops even told J.B.'s family point blank. They suspected Tee had a hand in her death.
It's kind of like funny acting about dirty houses
Okay.
and stuff like that. The house wasn't even dirty, but to her, she just a clean, real clean.
Now the prosecutors were stuck. They were trying to pin the murder on Weeden, but every time the defense spoke, it was Grizzly getting dragged. Their whole strategy was turning the spotlight on him, and it was working. One of the most damaging moments? The getaway driver testified that the shooting popped off exactly 45 seconds after Tee stepped out the car. Not a minute later, not random. It was too precise to ignore. Coincidence? Or someone coordinating a move down to the second? Then came the part that really made folks side-eye Grizzly. In past interviews, he said he ran to the window when he heard shots, claimed he wanted to see what was going down. But when JB's aunt, the actual homeowner, got on the stand, she shut that down. Said she never saw Tee go to no window at all. To outsiders, that might sound small, but in a case where credibility is king, every lie, and even a little one, can flip the whole script. And if that wasn't enough? The trial started pulling back the curtain on Grizzly's tight ties to the Chicago drill scene, the same streets that birthed the alleged shooter. That connection ain't just casual, it's deep. And that's got folks wondering if this whole thing goes way beyond just one hit. Turns out Jermaine Weeden wasn't some random shooter off the street. He was locked in with Booker 600, one of Tee Grizzley's close boys. Booker wasn't just some rapper from the scene. He had worked with Tee and stood as a groomsman at his wedding. That wedding went down after J.B. Brown was killed and after Weeden got cuffed, which had folks asking, was Tee totally innocent or just ice cold? That timing had the internet in flames. Comment sections, Reddit threads, conspiracy TikToks, all of it exploded with speculation. People didn't know what to believe anymore. But things got even messier when Whack 100 jumped in. The hip-hop personality claimed he personally spoke to J.B. Brown's son, and that son allegedly confirmed there was a messed-up relationship between his mother and Tee Grizzley.
Finding creative ways to tell nowadays. They telling through their lawyers, right? They won't get their butt up on that particular stand and point their hand and tell it all, but they gonna tell.
That right there had fans shook. The most damaging accusations didn't even come from court docs. They came from online content creators who dropped detailed videos laying out what they called the real motive. According to their theory, when Tee first came home from prison, he hid his assets and contracts by putting everything under J.B. Brown's name, trying to duck government seizure while clearing his debts. Then when the checks started coming in and Tee got back on his feet, he supposedly wanted his empire back. But here's the twist. J.B. Brown allegedly wouldn't sign the paperwork to transfer it all over. Boom. That's where the theory claims the motive came in. But hold up. Industry folks were quick to clap back. They pointed out something big. Tee was signed to heavyweights like 300 Entertainment and Atlantic Records. And in that world, labels always lock down master rights and publishing. The idea that one individual, even someone close, had control over that catalog, total stretch. So yeah, while the theory was juicy, but the details didn't line up with how the music biz really works. Still, that didn't stop fans from running wild with it. One thing kept standing out. Tee Grizzley never once complained about J.B. Brown managing his business. Not in interviews, not in music, not on social. If there really was drama over money or control, you'd expect some shade, right? But nah. Every time he mentioned J.B., it was nothing but praise. He credited her for helping steer his comeback. That silence spoke volumes, and not in the way some fans hoped. As the courtroom heat turned up, Tee started looking more and more like a target himself. When he got called to the stand, he hit them with the Fifth Amendment. Now, legally, that's his right. But in the streets, and especially online, people saw that as suspicious. If you're innocent, why not speak up? That was the vibe all over Twitter and YouTube. Meanwhile, the prosecutors still had a solid case on Weeden. The gun, the car, the phone records. But the defense kept working their angle. Make Tee look like the mastermind. The goal? Plant that seed of doubt in the jury's mind. If they thought Weeden was just following orders, they might be less likely to hand him a first-degree murder conviction.
As soon as I see my auntie, she about to open Roger here, a whole bunch of shots going on.
That could mean a lighter sentence for him. And a major twist for the case. But it didn't stop there. Word started spreading that federal investigators were now watching real close. Multiple insiders said that if Weeden gets found guilty and flips, starts talking, then Tee could be looking at federal murder-for-hire conspiracy charges. And if that sticks, that's not a slap on the wrist. That's life in prison, no cap. A straight-up death sentence for Tee's freedom, his music, everything. Online, things were getting chaotic. The fan base was split down the middle. Some still had his back, saying it was all just a smear campaign with no hard proof. Others, they felt blindsided, like everything they believed about Tee was a lie. His defenders pointed out the obvious. There was no direct evidence tying him to the trigger. It was all coming from Weeden's legal squad, who clearly had every reason to shift blame and protect their own neck. But the damage was done. The doubt was out there and it wasn't going away. Prosecutors kept pushing the same point. The hard evidence made it crystal clear. Weeden pulled the trigger. The gun, the car, the scene. It all lined up. Everything else? Just smoke and mirrors, wild theories, and a legal Hail Mary. But not everybody bought that. A lot of folks saw the circumstantial evidence and couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was going on. How did the shooter end up in perfect position at the exact moment Tee Grizzley steps out the ride? Why was Tee still surrounding himself with people tied to the shooter's world? The coincidences were piling up, too many for some to believe it was just random. As week 2 of the trial kicked off, the courtroom tension hit a boiling point. Observers said the prosecution was getting visibly irritated, not because their case against Whedon was weak, but because the defense kept dragging Tee Grizzley into the spotlight. It was throwing off their entire narrative. But here's the tricky part. Prosecutors couldn't defend Tee without looking like they were siding with someone they weren't even prosecuting. He wasn't their client. He wasn't on trial. And still, his name was on everyone's lips.
With me and Flocko and said, yo, Wack, I'm a big boy. I know what time it is. I know what was going on. I said, you know what was going on? He said, yeah, I know what was going on.
And you took that to mean that they were sleeping together?
Well, you know me. I said, well, since you know what was going on, did you know this? He said, I absolutely knew that.
About them.
Whedon's legal team knew they were walking a tightrope. Their move was risky, real risky. But if they could make the jury believe Whedon was just a soldier carrying out orders from a bigger boss, that could change everything. It might mean no life sentence, maybe even a full walk. But if the jury didn't buy it, then they just painted their client as a cold-blooded mercenary, a killer for hire with no soul. And that would lock him up for good. Meanwhile, whispers started flying. Some of Tee's own family members were reportedly starting to back away. They weren't speaking out, but insiders say the vibe had shifted, especially once they realized Tee was still kicking it with folks tied to the Chicago drill trenches. The emotions in that courtroom were heavy, people were breaking down, but the trial, it kept rolling like a machine with no brakes. And to really understand how things spun this far out of control, you gotta go back to the night it all began. August 20th, 2019, Detroit's East Side. The night bullets flew, and everything changed. Blood, betrayal, and a decision no one could take back. To really grasp the weight of what went down that night, you gotta rewind to where Tee Grizzley stood in 2019. He wasn't the same dude from back in the day, robbing dorm rooms at Michigan State or wilding out with sledgehammers in Kentucky jewelry stores. Nah, by then he was up. His debut album, Activated, had cracked the top 10 on Billboard. He was eating good, respected in the culture, and living proof that you can flip pain into purpose. He'd made it out, or at least that's how it looked. It was August 20th, 2019, and Tee was back in his hometown, cruising through Detroit in a black Chrysler 300.
They walked up to my door and opened my door. You know what I'm saying? So open my door, trying to get at me.
JB sat beside him, with a driver behind the wheel. They rolled down familiar blocks, streets filled with memories, both painful and proud. That night, they pulled up on Detroit's East Side, near 3 Mile Drive and Mack Avenue. Tee said they were making a personal stop. Wanted to see his cousin, someone who had tight ties to his late father. It was supposed to be a family moment, a calm pause in the storm of fame and pressure. But what happened next shattered everything. The peace they fought so hard to build got ripped apart in seconds. Official reports, from cops, witnesses, and Tee's own words, tell the same basic story. But depending on who you ask, that consistency is either proof he's telling the truth or a sign he rehearsed the lie too well. Because that night, the streets came back for him. The same streets that made him a star came looking to take it all away. This kind of violence ain't new to Detroit's hip-hop scene. It's haunted artists for years. And in this case, the streets stretched all the way to Chicago, where things started closing in fast. Jermaine Whedon, aka Wu-Tang, a 28-year-old with ties to Chicago's notorious 600 crew, got snatched up by police in October 2019. At first, it looked like a regular arrest. Gang affiliation, weapons charge, nothing out the ordinary. But what they found on him? That changed everything. When 12 pulled Whedon over, he was riding in a stolen blue Nissan Versa with New York plates. And tucked on him? A .40 caliber Glock 23. Back then, nobody thought much of it. Just another drill affiliate caught slipping. But in February 2020, ballistics came back, and that same Glock was directly linked to J.B. Brown's murder. The National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, NIBIN, confirmed it. No maybes, no question marks. That was the gun. And it got worse. That same Nissan Versa Whedon was sitting in matched the getaway car seen fleeing the scene in Detroit the night JB got hit. Add in cell tower data putting Whedon in Detroit at the exact time of the shooting, and suddenly the feds had what looked like a bulletproof case. It didn't stop there.
Because she looked like her face and shit went up, so she just looked like my auntie. It hurt me bad, so, you know, that's I think about her a lot. Got her name tattooed.
Turns out Whedon wasn't some random shooter for hire. He was tight with Booker 600, a major name in the Chicago drill scene and one of Tee Grizzley's closest homies. This wasn't industry networking. It was real friendship. So real, Booker stood beside Tee as a groomsman at his wedding. And guess what? That wedding went down after J.B. Brown's death, after Whedon got arrested. That detail had everybody talking. Did Tee really not know his circle might have been tied to the hit? Or did he just not believe it? To some, the wedding timing showed he trusted Booker and had no clue about the connection. But to others, it looked cold. Too cold. This wasn't just a rap beef or some turf drama anymore. It was starting to look like a deadly web of loyalty, silence, and maybe something much darker. The wildest theory of them all claimed that Tee Grizzley, with a wedding coming up and a public image to protect, had arranged for his aunt's death to hide an inappropriate relationship. People said he couldn't risk the scandal, not with his career booming. But that entire theory got shut down for good once the autopsy confirmed J.B. Brown wasn't pregnant when she died. Still, the damage had already been done. From Tee's point of view, the suspicion must have felt like a knife to the heart. Not only did he lose someone who was like a second mother, but now he was being painted as the one who set her up. And the people pushing that story? His own fans, the same ones who once rooted for his redemption. The emotional weight showed. In his interviews, in his music, in his face. He poured all that pain into a track titled ISH, JB's nickname, released just a month after the shooting in September 2019. The song wasn't just a tribute, it was a cry from a broken man. You could hear the heartbreak in every bar. It was his way of saying goodbye, and maybe trying to clear his name. Even those close to him started questioning things.
He was a suspect. So even if a person wasn't a suspect, if I didn't like that person, it was escalated. My dislike for them was escalated times 10. So yeah, everybody was.
Sada Baby, another artist managed by JB, reportedly came straight to Tee and asked him face to face, "Did you have anything to do with this?" When people that close feel the need to ask, it shows just how deep the suspicion ran. The grief hit everyone in JB's circle hard. She wasn't just a manager, she was family to many. And the pain didn't fade. It stuck around, heavy and unresolved. As time rolled on, the murder of J.B. Brown became one of hip-hop's most haunting unsolved tragedies. Whedon was facing serious prison time, possibly life behind bars. But his alleged ties to Tee Grizzley stayed stuck in the gray zone. Nothing proven, but impossible to forget. To understand how Tee even ended up in a storm like this, how someone could rise so high and end up tangled in something so dark, we have to go all the way back, before the fame, before the headlines, to the story that started it all. The rise of Tee Grizzley wasn't just fast, it was explosive, the kind of story that legends are made of. He walked out the pen on October 16, 2016, after serving close to 2 years for armed robbery. What happened next? Pure history. His breakout single dropped almost immediately, and the streets and the industry felt it. But the same rise that inspired millions would also lay the groundwork for one of hip-hop's darkest tragedies. Born March 23, 1994 in Detroit, Michigan, Tee, real name Terry, came up on Joy Road, a place known for struggle and survival. Raised mainly by his grandmother, he learned early what pain felt like. His life was marked by loss and chaos. His mom got hit with a 15-year sentence for drug trafficking when he was just a teen. A year later, his father was murdered. That kind of trauma doesn't just shape a kid, it brands their soul, and in Tee's case, it lit a fire that would burn through every track he ever dropped. But even in the middle of that storm, Tee had potential. Real potential. He pushed through the noise and made it all the way to college, becoming the first in his family to do it.
I studied music when I was about 12. My uncles just wanted a kid voice on this course that they had. And I was so nervous to do it. I'm like, let me just go.
He enrolled at Michigan State University, studying finance and accounting, a kid from the block trying to rewrite his future. First day out didn't just hit, it shook the culture. The way Tee Grizzley told his story, rapping about federal courtrooms, facing time, losing everything, and still pushing forward, hit different. The bars weren't just tough, they were honest. And that's what made the whole world stop and listen. This wasn't some glorified version of street life. Tee didn't try to make prison sound cool. He wasn't bragging. He was bleeding on the track. You could feel the vulnerability behind the anger, the pain behind the pride. He was saying what so many have lived, but few could put into words. And the streets felt it. So did the suits. The track went crazy viral, not just because it was fire, but because it was real. Even LeBron James got in on the wave, turning it into a social media challenge. That moment blew it all open. By the end of 2016, Tee Grizzley had signed a major deal with 300 Entertainment and Atlantic Records. Think about that. From cell block to record deal in a few months. No industry favors, no gimmicks. Just one man's truth hitting like thunder. Tape after tape, bar after bar, Tee Grizzley wasn't just collecting trophies, he was collecting respect. These weren't hollow awards or industry hype. This was validation. From the culture, from his peers, from fans who saw themselves in his story. He wasn't just making noise, he was becoming a part of hip-hop's living history. The rise didn't slow down, it accelerated. He made smart moves, lined up major collabs, and showed the world that he had more than just bars. He had business sense. Then came From the D to the A with Lil Yachty, and it went double platinum. RIA certified. No gimmicks, just two artists putting on for their cities.
What'd she say? I was trying to talk to her. I didn't hear what she was saying. Oh, she couldn't really form no word.
By now, Tee had shattered the one-hit wonder label. He wasn't just another ex-con turned rapper with a viral moment. He had staying power, commercial pull, and most importantly, an authentic voice that crossed borders and broke barriers. By 2018, the transformation was undeniable. His debut studio album, Activated, climbed all the way to number 10 on Billboard, and he snagged an MTV Video Music Award nomination for Push Artist of the Year. The same Terry Wallace who once sat in a jail cell for robbery was now Tee Grizzley, a rising force, a symbol of second chances, and proof that redemption was real. But if you knew Tee, you knew this run wasn't just about luck, timing, or talent. It was built on faith, not just in himself, but from the people who bet on him when nobody else would. And no one bet harder than J.B. Brown. She wasn't just his manager. She was family, backbone, and believer. She didn't wait for him to prove himself. She helped him become who he was. When Tee got out the pen with nothing but hope, she quit her job and went all in. She fronted him $250 for his first post-prison studio session, cash that helped birth First Day Out and everything that followed. In an industry known for vultures, bad deals, and broken dreams, JB was different. She was real, solid, committed. She wasn't managing a product. She was rebuilding a life. Their relationship was professional, yes, but also deeply personal. She stood by him when his name meant nothing. She helped him walk through the fire and come out winning. But that same bond, the one that made Tee Grizzley's rise possible, also became the center of suspicion, conspiracy, and heartbreak. As you've seen throughout this story, the very foundation of his success would later be twisted into a dark, confusing tragedy. One that threatens to turn a powerful comeback into a cautionary tale. But that same bond, the one that made Tee Grizzley's rise possible, also became the center of suspicion, conspiracy, and heartbreak.
They walked up to my door and opened my door. You know what I'm saying? So opened my door, trying to get at me.
As you've seen throughout this story, the very foundation of his success would later be twisted into a dark, confusing tragedy. One that threatens to turn a powerful comeback into a cautionary tale. A story of redemption, flipped on its head. If you found this story powerful, eye-opening, or just straight up wild, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and let us know your take. Do you think Tee was just caught in the crossfire of bad associations, or is there more to the story? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.